Let's talk about NECKS. Hey folks, welcome back. We're starting something new here, kind of a Guitar 101 type of deal. I've learned an awful lot from people on the internet who have taken the time to make videos, thank you very much, of what they're doing. And it's not, it takes time to do that. I could get a lot more work done here in the shop if I wasn't up in the office editing videos. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the effort. I appreciate the knowledge that it has that goes into these. Because climbing the video editing curve is not something I really enjoy doing, but the videos and the end result is something I do enjoy. So we're going to start a series on kind of guitar parts basics. And the first one I'm going to do is NECKS. Let me say this before I get started. We're speaking in broad generalities here. Guitars are made by any number of people subscribing to any number of theories on why things work. So I'll do my best to present to you what is most common, what you will more likely see than not. But understand that if, you know, Bob Johnson wants to make guitars and paint them purple and make the nuts out of, I don't know, rebar, he can do that because that's part of the beauty of guitars, is there's such an amount of creativity that can go into them. So I'm going to present to you broad brush generalities. Just keep that in mind. Most guitars you're going to see are going to have one of two styles of necks. There's the Gibson style of neck, and there's the Fender style of neck. It's pretty easy to discern them when you're looking at them, because if I turn this guitar up on its side, you can see how the neck continues straight down, and then the headstock bends back at an angle. That is known as a Gibson style type of neck. Whereas if I turn this Fender style neck on its side, that back bend isn't there. It is just kind of flat. It's scooped down a little bit, and you can see the flat versus the angled theory. They're both functional, they both work. That's why we know Gibson and Fender so much. And if you look around at the huge amount of guitars out there, you're going to see them kind of falling into one of two camps here. Generally speaking, Gibson necks are made out of quarter sawn wood. That means that the grain is running this way and it's kind of stacked vertically when you look at it on end. Fenders, generally speaking, are made out of flat sawn, which means their grains are kind of oriented horizontally like this. Generally speaking, there's a problem with this way of thinking. If you imagine these fibers all kind of lined up going this way, like a bunch of rods going like this. When you get down to this end and you've got this back cranked headstock here, that means then that these fibers are continuously interlocking here. These fibers will only run from here to here as you come down this way. There's a weakness right around in here because you're running into the end grain. Your grains are no longer this long, so to speak. They're only this long. So should this guitar fall like this, you have the weight of the machine heads on it, the weight of the head itself. You can snap it right here. Works if they fall forward off of a guitar stand like they do. Falls like this, breaks right around in here because this is the weakest part of the wood. These photos are of a Les Paul Studio that had headstock broken on it. My son and I purchased this guitar at a shop in right outside of Tokyo with the understanding that it was broken, and that's one of the reasons why $1,000 Les Paul is $250. And you can see this very characteristic headstock break that is at the moment in the final stages of repair. The paint's curing on it. It was just applied yesterday. Now there's a way of thinking that may help that, and that is what we call a scarf joint. If we look right here, you can see there's a line right in there, and that is where this part of the neck grain runs like so, and then they make another piece of the headstock, but now the grain is running this way. You can actually see the lines in the grain here running this direction. So this is two pieces of wood glued in. It makes for a less expensive manufacturing process. The hope is that it also makes for a more durable headstock, but I will show you some. This is my made in Indonesia Mavis Les Paul copy with one very nicely fractured scarf joint, as you can see. They're not immune to breakage. It can happen. This one was repaired not by me. It's going to be redone here in the medium distant future. So that's something to think about. So that's the issue that you have with a Gibson style neck. Generally, they don't require string trees. Generally. Fender necks, on the other hand, generally do require string trees on both electric guitars and the basses. Do Fender necks or headstocks break like Gibsons do? No, they don't. Because if you use the power of the interwebs, and if you Googleize Gibson headstock break, and then you Googleize Fender headstock break, man, you're going to find a pile of these. You're not going to find very many of these. This is a continuous piece of wood where you do have some end grain right here, but not to the extent that you do up along this side. So there's something to consider. Gibson style necks generally are made out of mahogany. This one isn't. This one's made out of maple. It does have a rosewood fingerboard on it though. And there are a couple of different theories on how to have a fingerboard. Generally speaking, Gibsons will have an open grained fingerboard, rosewood or ebony. It's not sealed. There is an oil type finish put on it that you need to maintain. whereas with the Fenders, Fender generally will have a maple fingerboard, and they're usually sealed. They'll usually have a nitro or a poly coat on it, and that you just kind of have to clean off. A damp rag, not wet, a damp rag, wipe off any type of oil, and then just dry it off. Whereas open grain fingerboards, I don't use lemon oil, I don't use orange oil, I don't use any of that citrus based type of stuff. I don't use olive oil, I don't use mineral oil. I'm a linseed oil guy. That's what I like. I wipe it on, I wipe it off, I don't let it soak in. I'm not trying to saturate the board. Usually do that twice a year, and we're good. The Fender style, generally this is a cap, as you can see here. This rosewood fingerboard has been cut and laid and glued on top of the neck, whereas this is integral to the neck. You can have a maple top on it, or it can be just part of the surface of the neck itself. This is a Peavey Patriot. A little different theory. Theirs is actually a two-piece neck, and you can see the seam running right down the middle there. But there's no cap on it. This is all maple all through here. 22, 24 frets. It just all kind of depends. The nuts are generally different. Now this one is way different because this is a Floyd Rose locking nut. Generally a Les Paul nut will be wider than a Fender nut. You can see how thin that nut is, as opposed to that size nut. It's not always that way, but generally speaking, there it is. Now there are a couple of different ways that you can get this neck onto the body of a guitar. One of those is a bolt-on neck, which you can kind of tell. Bolt-on neck pattern. Bolt-on neck pattern. The second way is that you can have what we call a set neck or a glue-in neck. And then the third way is you can have a neck through or a through body neck. And let me show you, I've got one of each of those. Now here we've got two similar guitars. This is again that Mavis Les Paul copy, and this is a Gibson Les Paul Studio. This is a bolt-on neck, or a screw-on neck to be actually correct. This is a set neck or a glue-in neck. There's something we call the neck pocket, and the heel of the neck fits inside right down in here. And on this guitar there are 4 bolts or screws that run into the back of this neck and secure it to the body, so that it all vibrates together. Whereas this guitar, you can see the neck fits in here and there is no bolting that goes on. It is a tight fit that is then glued in, again making this connection between these two parts. If you want to start a fun bar brawl, find you a couple of guitar players and start asking them about the whole bolt-on versus set neck and sustain. And more than likely fists are going to be flying before too long. You know what, we're all big boys and girls here. I would much rather your experience be your guiding light rather than what a YouTube video says, or Bob at the custom shop down the street, or Junior at the local string hacker. Play them both. Figure them out for yourself. Experience is a good deal. These are easier to maintain because if we have to do something to the neck, if it just gets way out of whack, I'm just pulling screws out and we can do some neck work. This is a little more problematic. You can take necks off, but it's no fun. I would rather work on one of these than work on one of these from a purely mechanical standpoint. Which brings us to the third type of way that you attach this neck to your body. The third way that we can get the neck and the body attached together is this. This is a PV Cirrus 5-string bass made in Indonesia, most likely, and it is a through neck. And you'll notice these lines because this neck is actually made of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of wood. And these 5 pieces of wood are glued together, laminated together, and they extend from here all the way out there, which I can't get in one shot because this is a 35-inch scale bass. It's a big piece of wood. But it is, for all intents and purposes, a continuous piece of wood from the head all the way down here to the tail. We don't have to worry about that mechanical coupling. So what they do is they glue these on, which are called wings. They glue the wings onto the neck here at this joint. These outer 2 bands of wood here, they're decorative because they actually are not part of the neck. But now that is how the body and the neck are together. They're glued and they're laminated all together. This particular guitar is a sustain monster. It is a tone monster. It is probably my second most prized possession from my time in Japan. I might show the other one later. But that's a different way that you can get a neck and a body put together. Now that brings us up to an interesting point, and that is the truss rod. So cue the creepy man behind the curtain music while I go get my visual aid. Alright, visual aids. This is the Thompson Splendor Series Freedom of Expression precision bass copy, made in Japan. I paid $20 for this, and to be honest, the guys at the shop that I was getting it from attempted to talk me out of buying it because it's such a piece of poop. It really is. This is my testament to things we don't do to guitars on many, many, many levels. But today we're talking about necks. Think of a guitar as like a bow and arrow. The wood of the guitar is like the bow, and the strings are like the bowstring. You know, when you string a bow up, it will curve. And a guitar is the same way. It's attempting to counteract that force because you're talking like 110 foot-pounds when you get a guitar all strung up. That's a lot of pressure on this wood trying to basically pull it into a bow shape. If it were a bow shape, it would not work very well as a guitar. So we have to build it rigid enough to have just a little bit of flex in it, but we have to be able to adjust that flex, and that's where the truss rod comes into play. The truss rod is a metal rod on the inside of a guitar neck, and it's adjustable. And the reason we adjust it is because the nature of wood, with temperature and humidity, it will flex. It will tighten up, it will loosen up, and we need to be able to adjust that. So adjustable truss rods allow us to do that. But you have to get it inside the neck. And there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. Fender does an interesting thing, and I don't have one here to show you. On the back of Fender necks, you will see what we call a skunk stripe. It is a half-inch or wide, maybe a 5-inch wide piece of wood, koa or walnut wood, because what they do is they route down into the neck from the back, and then they insert the truss rod, and then they put a wood filler in there, not a wood filler, but a piece of wood to fill that gap in there, and that's what we call a skunk stripe. So if you look on the back of a neck and you see a different type or shade of wood, that's the truss rod has been routed in from the back, and that will allow you to have a maple neck, and the top of the neck is that piece of maple. There's not a cap on it. That's one way to do it. The Peavey neck that I have is a two-piece neck. It is two pieces of wood joined in the middle. My guess is they have routed the channel out before they glued it together. I've not been to the Peavey factory, that's just a guess on my part. The third way that you can do that is you can route your truss rod channel in from the top, and then you put a cap, a fingerboard cap on top of it. The Thompson Splendor series has done that. They've routed the channel into the neck, and then they put a cap, a maple cap on top of it. Now, for some reason, there was, I'm guessing, a failure of some sort in the glue joint that held the fingerboard to the neck on this guitar. I'm going to guess some form of abuse, just from the general shape of this guitar. It is pretty horrendous. So the innovative person that owned this guitar at one point decided that they would mechanically fix the fingerboard to the neck using nails, which we don't use in guitar building. So there are 21 nails in this guitar from one end of the fingerboard to the other. I like the hole that I have here, right at the 10th fret, smack dab in the middle. My guess is where they attempted to drive a nail through the guitar and it encountered the metal truss rod in the middle, and then decided that they needed to pair it up. So now the good thing about this is this allows me to do this. Ta-da! I've left the nails in. I have cut the ends of them off on the back so that they're just, the nail heads are there to show you how not to affix your fingerboard to your neck, and to take it off without fear of having to go and get a tetanus shot. But now you can see the channel that is routed in the neck here. And then this is the truss rod that goes down in the middle here. There is a truss rod nut that fits on the end of it, and that is what you use to adjust the bow. If your guitar is fretting out, if it's buzzing, it could be just a very simple truss rod adjustment. You might need to put a little more bow into it, especially if the weather has recently changed. Or it could be a high fret. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons, but this is something that can easily be done. A word of caution: if you are not comfortable adjusting your truss rod, if you are not knowledgeable about the different ways to adjust a truss rod, you might want to find someone to saddle up with, because you can break them. You can snap them off. There sometimes gets a point where there just isn't any adjustment to it. You can break the rod. There's actually a rod inside this square channel here. You can strip the nut off here. You can strip the nut out where the wrench or the screwdriver goes into it. You could do all kinds of crazy stuff to them. You can get really crazy and you can break a neck. So go slow, find someone to help you. How do you adjust that? Well, on a lot of the Fender style guitars, you have to take the neck off, which is not really the most convenient thing in the world to do. This will be as so. You will have to turn over your guitar, pull out these screws, and then make your adjustment as best you see fit. Put it back on, get it strung back up, get it tuned back up, let it sit a while. Minimum, I let them sit a couple hours in between adjustments, because it takes time for things to settle down. Then you have to go back, do it again, go back, do it again. It can be a pain. On some guitars, there is a way around that, and let me show you that. On some Fender style guitars, down here where the pick guard is at, there is a small notch. Generally right here, U-shaped, about like that. That's just big enough to where you can get a screwdriver in, or a wrench, an Allen key, a hex key, whatever you want to call it, and get it in there and adjust it. That's one way to do it. An even better way to do it is to use a truss rod that has there's a wheel on the end with little holes in it, and you can see that wheel will sit right there. And so if I need to adjust the truss rod on that, then I just have to put an Allen key or the appropriate adjustment tool, and then I can move it back and forth without having to do anything. Those are the couple of different ways to do that. There are some Fender style necks that you can actually go in up here and make that adjustment and not have to do the whole shenanigans of taking the neck off the body, which is rather inconvenient. Now for Gibsons, there's a different way to do that. So on Gibson style necks, you'll have a plate that goes over here. You can pull that plate off and you will have a nut or a hex head or some sort of mechanical coupling that you can make the adjustment up here, which is much more convenient than pulling the neck off, making your adjustment, putting everything back on, hoping that it's going to be right. I'll be honest with you, whenever I do a truss rod adjustment, I loosen the tension on the strings a little bit, will then make my adjustment, then restring, not restring, but get everything tuned back up, see if my adjustment, measure my adjustment to see that it's right, and then let it sit a little while. A maintenance kind of tip, if you can, whenever you adjust your truss rod, just take a dab of machine oil and put it there on the threads. Not a whole lot, just enough to get in there so that it's not going to seize up. Because there are times when I've got guitars in here for adjustment, and a lot of my time is spent trying to de-goo the truss rod adjustment nut or the screw. It's seized up, and then you're penetrating oil and all kinds of shenanigans to get that done. So that is oh, you know what? I should talk acoustics for just a second. Stand by. All right, I've had to kind of relocate here just because the size of these acoustic bodies blocks my otherwise lovely vantage point. Acoustic guitars have got two ways that you can put the neck in. One is the dovetail glued in joint, of which both of these are examples of that. This one obviously has issues. This one was, I don't know if this was broken and then the neck was taken off, or perhaps when they were taking the neck off this was fractured. This is the Prairie 12 string, which I have deemed Lazarus, and the heel of this guitar has been left on the body. You can make your neck out of a single piece of wood, or you can make it out of two pieces of wood, the neck and the heel. This one was a two-piece neck that is broken. This is a press fit type of a joint that you also use glue. They'll use hot hide glue or like a yellow construction glue like Tight Bond. That will do quite nicely. It holds very well. Maintenance wise, it's kind of a pain, because if you need to get one of these off, if it's like a hide glue neck or a white glue neck, you have to pull a fret off, drill a hole in the neck so that you can get a needle down in here and inject steam. So you've got moisture and heat working for you to soften this glue up, and then you can pull all of this out. That's the disadvantage of it. The other way is you can do a bolt-in neck. And I don't have a bolt-in neck acoustic. I've got 4 acoustics here, and they're all glue-ins. But so that's the two ways they're going to attach. Obviously, you don't have a through neck acoustic guitar, because there's this big hollow space here in the middle that you can't put the neck through. So that's kind of what we got. That's the NECKS, the Gibson versus the Fender style. String trees, the problems with the way the grain runs in the Gibsons, the scarf joints. Do they have a wide nut? Do they have a skinny nut? Is it a bolt-on? Is it a set neck? Is it a through neck? How do they put the finger board on? Is it open grained? Is it closed grain? Is it sealed? How do they put the truss rod in, and what kind of happens when we adjust it? That's just the very, it's not even Guitar 101. It's like Guitar, 0.7, talking about NECKS. But it's a place to get started. It's a place to learn. And hopefully it will fit in nicely with the next planned Guitar Basics video, which I believe is going to be the bodies. So stay tuned for that. Cheers, folks. Have a good one. I think it's time we talked about NECKS. think it's time for the next talk. It's all about the neck. I'm getting a crick in my neck. Hey, it's time to get neck-id. Sorry.